recruitment so I'll just go back to that. Welcome everybody once again. We're going to cover a few topics today to help you with your South Asia strategy to inform undergraduate recruitment. And we've got a Star Study panel today sharing their insight with you a little bit later on. My name's Rob. I've been at Acumen for 2 years now. I'm the Senior Manager for Client Success, so I work with a number of UK universities. Before then, I've spent time at Staffordshire, Aston and Loughborough University, primarily focusing on South Asia and having an undergraduate focus as well. So before we get started, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ritu for a quick introduction, and welcome to the session today, Ritu.
Thank you, Rob. A very warm welcome to all of you. I am Ritu Sharma. I can see some familiar names in the attendees. So many of you might know me, and for the ones who don't, this is my 11th year at Acumen. Sanam as for Acumen, the same, but I worked in the agent side with TC Global as one of the leading agencies in India. Along with Hertfordshire, which was my pure UK stint. And then I moved on to my second love, which I often call it as a second love, which was Australia. And I worked for Victoria University in the recruitment, admissions, direct recruitment, and the compliance space, managing MEASA, Middle East, South Asia as the region. And I'm back to Acumen as Director Partner Success for UK and ANZ. Looking forward to talking about the undergrad recruitment space, which is definitely a growing space. I'll pass on to Anamika for a brief introduction from her. Thank you.
Thanks, Ritu. Good afternoon to everyone, and those who have joined from the UK, and good evening from India. So, hello everyone, my name is Anamika Saxena. I am currently working with Acumen and I'm representing University of Portsmouth, which is located in the southeast of England. With Acumen representing University of Portsmouth, it's been over 2 years. I, although have been working in the industry for over 12 years, I started my career as a counselor working with schools, not actively, I've been working inside the school, but yes, I've been working with school counselors and school students in the undergraduate space. That's how my journey started in the undergraduate market. From there, I started working with another recruitment agency named Shiksha.com that was the pioneer in the online study abroad counseling. With that journey, I moved to Australia, looking after their South Asia market to promote the creative courses in India and the other subcontinent region. Post that, I am now working and representing University of Portsmouth in the South Asia region. So yeah, that's all about my brief journey in this industry, and I'm looking forward to interacting during the session. And with this, I would like to pass it on to Charlotte.
Hi everyone, my name is Charlotte Davison and I'm Head of International Recruitment at Loughborough University. A relatively new role for Loughborough, so I'll be overseeing all of our international recruitment. But prior to that, I was Regional Manager and then before that International Officer at Loughborough. But one of the projects that I've worked on all the way through the last 10 years I've been at Loughborough is expanding our undergraduate recruitment strategies, both for particular countries, but also across the entire globe, essentially. So looking at how we work with counsellors and build our international strategy. So yeah, looking forward to sharing some ideas with you.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's great to kind of learn from your collective experience. But what we're going to do now is kind of focus on where you would start. So we've got partners on the call who may be very new to India, very new to the undergraduate space. Some are a little bit more experienced in their journey. But Anamika, we've seen a steady increase over the years of numbers from India. I think in 2023, UCAS reported the highest number of undergraduate acceptances from India. So we know there's demand there. But just where would you start? Where would you start in that recruitment cycle in a country of 2 billion people? Over to you.
Yeah, that also excites me to share more insights. I mean, it's really exciting to see the numbers and the trends going upward in the undergraduate market. But with this, I would like to just zoom out a little bit and share my personal perspective on the undergraduate market, and then I'll share the University of Portsmouth approach in the space of undergraduate. I think, like you mentioned, that the numbers are growing every year. As much as it is growing for postgraduate, the numbers are very aligned with in the undergraduate market as well. And the first thing, it's really important, as everybody agrees, that India is such a diverse market where big brands like Ford, Citi, Bank, they have lost their presence because it's such a diverse market. And with the diversity brings complications as well. So I think, in my view, first thing is really important to form a community. With postgraduate market, it comes very handy. There are already a group of agents that most of the universities are working with. But in the undergraduate space, forming a community is really key element. And within that community, it is also really important to identify your target region institutions. It could be some particular regions in India. India is a big country, and with the changing interest of subject areas, with I mean offbeat courses may be popular in some regions. So I think the first thing is forming a community of school counselors. And then the second approach is how can you engage with that community through webinars, which everyone these days is very much active in organizing webinars, but how uniquely you are organizing those webinars to provide some information about certain courses which are not very popular. For instance, the University of Portsmouth is very popular for physics, and physics is not a very top picked subject by undergraduate students, as it's a bit complicated to study, as complex, difficult. But yes, physics is implied everywhere, be it statistics, analysis, you need a background of physics. So I think it's really important to form and engage with communities through your regular visits, participating in study tours. University of Portsmouth has been constantly participating in British Council organized study tours, frequent visits to schools whenever you're traveling to any certain region, which is the targeted region of the university. They can be always integrated with some recruitment events. It is always good to show and meet the counselors in that city, and that really adds up to the presence. I mean, India is a key market, and it is a key market for the whole lot of world. And all the key institutions across the world are eyeing on India as a market. And we can easily imagine how counselors are also busy and with the overflow of information from across the world. So I think some key initiatives like frequent visits, building your rapport with those counselors, organizing some unique sessions that is going to help the counselors to learn more about the university, as well as some key courses to promote. And I think that takes a long way. And for institutions which are modern universities, they can always pick up some niche courses which are unique at the university. And thirdly, I think what I would like to share here is that with Acumen support, because I have been working in the undergraduate market, but not that actively, because I lost my touch with school counselors after I joined a postgraduate focused organization. And then from there, I have not been able to actively participate in the communities of school counselors. But with Acumen, I am so glad, and with the expertise of Ritu, Amrita, we are able to bridge that gap, because undergraduate market, one, as much as postgraduate market is price sensitive, undergraduate market is not price sensitive. And there is a key element of building trust with counselors, because they are going to suggest or rely on the advice of a university and a counselor. Having someone who has worked with those counselors for decades, that really helps. in bridging that gap and comes as somebody who has known this university for years of experience. So I think that really helps. And just to mention as a last initiative that we have been doing with Acumen, as well as I'm so glad to see that that's going to share, and we are going to see those results in the upcoming years as well. Are those some of the activities we are doing with Acumen in the school space, organizing webinars, subject-specific fairs, which can be delivered online with the school counselors as well as parents' engagement. So all of these strategies, I think, are really helping out to carve a plan for University of Portsmouth to have a pinch of share in this competitive market.
That's lovely. Thank you much. Thank you so much, Anamika. Really good to hear the different approaches that you've taken, and really pleased to hear that Acumen have been able to support some of that as well. Charlotte, over to you now. Any advice that you would have? Any good starting points from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember the flip side. So it's very easy to look into a market of what the market can offer, what you should do in the market, particularly within the kind of global recruitment team, your South Asia team, for example. But it's also really important to make sure that the processes that you have at your institution match up to that. So whether it's a market you've been working in for a long time and want to grow, but having buy-in across the institution. So looking at the sort of students that you're working with already, where are those students coming from that you can grow? Are they coming from a particular curriculum, a particular area of that country? How can you build on those strengths? Do you have any student alumni who are from particular schools that you can engage? I think we'll talk about student ambassadors later, but utilising those students to help build your connections. But equally, making sure that when students or school counsellors want to apply to your institution, that the process is there, so that you've got really clear entry requirements, particularly if that's for a non-standard entry requirement for the UK. So standard 12, for example, are those advertised clearly on your website? Do you have the course breakdown that you can share? Are your admissions team familiar with accepting those students? Can they process those applications really quickly and turn that around, answer queries? And does that fit into your timescales? Obviously, standard 12 comes out kind of May, June time, which isn't typical to the rest of your university cycle. So are admissions ready at that point to process those applications? Do they know that students need to send in their their certificates? How will they do that? Do you have a portal? Is it direct? And making sure that those processes are there. How are you then going to work with those students who become unconditional firm earlier in the cycle than perhaps your typical conversion activities? And just making sure those processes are there for you to work. It's all well and good us as recruiters going out, building those links. But if the students can't ultimately enroll or have a difficult time, that makes it a lot more difficult. And I think the other thing is just making sure to identify your markets. And Anamika said that, but you know, what sort of university are you? At Loughborough, we're a high fee, relatively high entry requirement institution. We need to make sure we're targeting the right sort of students, the right sort of schools, and the team at Acumen can help with that as well, and kind of identifying links for us to work with.
Thank you, Charlotte. Really good point on the process. I think, yeah, it's a bit of a non-starter if you're not set up to welcome those students through their journey as well. Ritu, anything from your perspective that you'd like to add in terms of starting points and locations, perhaps, for institutions to consider?
Thank you, Rob. I think a lot of it covered by Anamika and Charlotte, but just a subtle note here to say that while the agent space is there for active, thorough recruitment, the school space is obviously, we are number-driven people, we are number-driven as institutions, but it is a selfless profession. So a lot of giving comes first before we take from that particular institution or that particular body. So I think the whole approach and the whole strategy has to be a little different when approaching schools. It is not a very number-driven approach. Subtly, yes, it is number-driven, but I think how we kind of walk into an institution is first to give and then to get. I think that is the first point. Obviously, talking about data, having that clear strategy in place, and having those small milestones as well, because first year we might or might not get 5 students from one particular institution, but having those small milestones in terms of what are you trying to achieve. I think the first year will be more towards brand building, and then slowly and gradually it is a relationship building which we get into. Also, I just want to add here as a parent, and I think that will be my constant talk when I say this, the parent mindset is changing in India. We want our kids to start off early in our professions, in their careers rather than later. So yes, India is a PG market, but it is a growing UG market, because at 18-year-old, obviously you're more kind of tameable, you are more adaptable as well. So definitely a space to look forward to, but yes, it needs a very different strategy. And I completely agree to Charlotte's point. An understanding of the market is very important. How is a CBSE different to an ICSE board? Or how is one state board different in India versus another state board? All state boards are not the same. All curriculums are not the same. So I think that deeper understanding and not having a blanket approach to India. India is one country, but many countries in one country. I think that's the approach to be taken.
Thanks, Ritu. You touched on a really good point there, in terms of relationship building and maintaining that good rapport with the schools. Is there anything from like the counsellor's perspective you'd like to highlight here from your experience? So any hints and tips that universities and ICRs on the call today can adopt to building really good relationships with counsellors? What would make life easier for a counsellor, for example?
I think the very first thing is don't sell. That's for the agents to sell. I think I keep using this word. Yes, we are geared for numbers, but it has to be a very subtle underplaying number. It's more towards investment and how do I as a university support these counselors and students to be more honest and informative. Obviously, the agent space is much more aggressive. I've been an agent counselor myself. That space is definitely aggressive, and the fastest finger first gets the acceptance. Whichever university gets the offer first, the agent starts pushing and promoting that particular university or their own partner universities versus the other universities. But a school counselor has no motive. It's very, very selfless. They have gone through that student journey from class 1, 2, or maybe 5, whenever the student entered the school. So it's a more emotional connect, maybe what I have with my own kids or with my nieces and nephews. It's very, very personal. So there is definitely not a selling proposition there. A genuine advice coming from the university, I think that is much appreciable. But I'll maybe Charlotte can add a few more angles to it.
Yeah, I think with relationships, the best relationships I've ever formed are realizing that we're all people. So don't just go into it trying to talk about your institution, business-like. Yeah, that will work. But actually, the easiest relationships I've formed across different countries and with counsellors, in South Asia as well, is having that people relationship, getting to know them. Who are their kids? What do they like? What can you do to help them, not just with your institution, but with the UK as a whole? If you're travelling out, for us based in the UK, is there anything we can bring? I'm going to jump to a non-South Asian example, but we've got a school that we work with really closely in Canada, where the principal is English, living in Canada, and she really misses Galaxy chocolate. So whenever we go, we make sure to take a case of Galaxy chocolate. And those are the little things that really, really pick up. knowing about people's families, so you can have that really quick conversation. And then it jumps into oh, by the way, I've got a student that's interested in this. Do you have that course? Or try and position yourself as the rep, the university employee that can help about everything. You know, they can go to you and say, I've got a student with a really difficult case. What would you recommend? Make yourself helpful. And as Ritu said, be fast, be helpful, be prompt on those emails. If they're emailing you, get back to you. They've probably got students sitting in front of them that want an answer. They've got parents who are nagging them. We'll talk about parents a little bit more, but try and be supportive. But what can you offer them? Go and see them as much as you can, but can you bring them to your campus as well? So recently, with the help of Acumen and Rita and the team, we had 5 Indian school counsellors come over to Loughborough for a couple of days, spend time on campus. Some of them flew in literally for 2 nights in the UK to see Loughborough and flew home again, which was absolutely amazing dedication. But that was really helpful in terms of showing them what our university has to offer, things that I wouldn't necessarily have thought to tell people about, but they saw it on campus and they're like, my student would love that. They can really position it. They can see their students there. They can see the support. They can meet the other people within the team. But equally, you know, the time on campus was great, but the dinners out we had in the evening, building those relationships, taking the time to remember that we're all people. And not only have they hopefully learned about Loughborough and hopefully going to promote that, I built some relationships that I've utilised in the last few weeks that I started my new role in, asking for help and asking for advice from those counsellors as well. So it goes 2 ways. So yeah, essentially the personal touch, and if you can bring people to campus, if you can add something extra, I'd really recommend that as well.
Thanks, Charlotte. Great to be able to invest in that time and have those conversations on campus where you can see, you know, campus working, thriving, students there, and they get that perspective which they can share with their students as well. And Amika, anything else to add, perhaps, in terms of in country and you being a little closer to being able to visit the counsellors? Anything you would advise when making relationships there?
Definitely. I would just like to expand on what Charlotte has shared and touched upon. Having that go-to person approach, I think it's really important. And as a recruiter myself, I have worked with UK, I've worked with Australia as a destination. Whenever I visit schools, I do not go as a UK personality. I do bring expertise of other destinations. As much as we know that in agents, there are specialized team for UK as a destination, but there are challenges at school level. A school counselor is going to have and equip themselves with all the latest information about all the destinations. For instance, I was having a chat with one of the counselors, and a student came up with a very offbeat location, which the counselor was not prepared with and had never heard about that destination before. I think having that the channel of the approach, easy channel of going back to a recruiter, somebody who can be relied on for not just information about one destination, but various destinations as a whole, and not just giving them and equipping them with information about your university, but talking about UK or your country as a whole, the latest trends, because that is something which keeps them occupied, because they're not just doing counseling. The school counselors are involved and occupied with various other school engagement activities. So I think that really helps. In terms of personalized connections with the school counselors, I think one of the biggest festival here in India is Diwali. So as much as we show our love to agents by pampering them with organizing conferences, I think it's equally important to keep remembering our school counselors by showing them a token of love by sending them Diwali wishes. I think that also helps them to become part of your family.
Really nice touch with the Diwali wishes. That sounds lovely. Speaking of families, we know that the parents are going to play a huge part in this, but from your perspective, and we'll come to you first, Charlotte, how are you involving parents in the students' application journey, and how do you think that's making a big difference in those students converting? So anything you want to share on that subject?
Yeah, I think with undergraduate students, it's important to remember that parents, in a lot of cases, are the ultimate decision maker. We can go in, we can work with students in schools, we can work with the school counsellor, we can convince a student that Loughborough is the place they want to come to. Look at our campus behind us, it's amazing. But they're not paying their fees, they're not spending the money. They have to speak to their parents. So it is increasingly important to engage parents, I think. And I also think parents are, in 10 years that I've been doing this job, I think parents are a lot more involved now than they were previously. They're wanting, they're used to seeing more things digitally. They want more information. So yeah, they are the decision maker. We need to be able to provide information to them. So we are working on a parent strategy at Loughborough. It's something that we've had for quite a long time in small factors, but different ways that we can work with parents to ensure that they get the information that they need. And also remembering that they are people themselves as well. They are sending their child, their son, their daughter, their 17, 18-year-old halfway around the world to a different country, to a different time zone. It's a big decision for them to make as well. So making sure that they feel involved in the process, particularly where you've got students at really good schools. Sometimes the student gets all the information, but does the parent get those options? So what can we do? And that could be things like we're looking at setting up a parent's newsletter, so a parent CRM stream. They get key information about the process. But we work really closely with parent ambassadors. So that works really nicely. Parent of a student that's already come to Loughborough, what's their experience? There's lots of parent Facebook groups, social media sites where parents share their information as well, so tapping into those. And doing things like webinars specifically for parents. I remember way back when I was applying as a student and my mum was trying to get involved in the process, and I thought she was the most embarrassing thing you could ever find. But now I'm that chunk older, I realised actually her questions were really important. So offering a different space for parents to connect with the university, to ask their questions, without their son or daughter kind of tapping them on the shoulder and telling them to be quiet, it's about them. So just offering parents that extra support. And that's important throughout the process. So we start it with lead generation, that first introduction to the university. I work at an institution that people often don't know how to pronounce, don't know where it is. So that first introduction to Loughborough, but all the way through to conversion to applicant, conversion to firm offer holder, but particularly at this time of the year where the students might have their grades, they might be unconditional firm, but there's still a piece on the parents actually accepting that they're going overseas at all, so that limiting that attrition from unconditional firm to enrolment as well. So I think parents are really, really important. Have we lost Robbie? Looks like he might have frozen. I can keep talking at this point. Oh, Robbie,
no, thank you so much. It's great to have that insight. Great to have that, Charlotte. Thank you. Sorry, I've got a few technical issues here. And Amika, anything from your perspective on the role of parents?
Definitely. I mean, I can't just agree more. Although India is a progressive country, but still, when it comes to the decision of choosing a university, especially at undergraduate level, the reason is the financial dependence. In India, the applicants who are progressing to undergraduate stage, they still haven't seen the environment of working and funding themselves. So that's a big difference. A lot of times students would come up with their shortlist of universities, but parents would be the final decision maker of which university it has to be. And it's very, very, I think, understood, because parents do have a lot of worry for their undergraduate students. They haven't seen that side of their kid, that they can be themselves in a whole world country, because they have not seen themselves by them looking after their things at their own at home. So this is a natural tendency for them to be worried about. So I think, and it does play an important role to bring in parents in the decision and the application journey. When we are interacting with applicants, it's equally important to engage with parents, especially at undergraduate level. I do make sure that whenever we are organizing info sessions, we do organize it for parents. And I have seen myself that undergraduate students do come up even in the recruitment fairs with their parents. Having that, approach for parents to come and learn more about your university is really important. Especially when you are doing your pre-departure sessions, that also gives them a sense of belonging and sense of safety that their kids are going to be looked after. And even those info sessions that we keep organizing every week, we do make sure that undergraduate students do invite their parents during those sessions so that we can give them a flavor of what all support services their kids are going to receive when they are at the university campus. It's not going to be a whole new land, but it's would be probably a homeland with additional support services. As we do understand, undergraduate students, they are new to that world. So yeah, I can't agree more on this. Yes, parents are really important piece of element in the entire journey of undergraduate applications.
Thanks, Anamika. And Ritu, as a parent yourself, not to put you on the spot, but what are the main factors for you? What are the questions you're asking when your daughters are going to study?
I think, Rob, as much as I would want to call ourselves a developing country and less control freak as parents, but I think there's no shame in accepting we are control freak as parents. And what I came to realize, being in this trade for 20 years, there are still so many questions as a parent you have when your own child is moving to the study journey. I can't agree more that parents have a lot of influence, mainly because of the financial factor. Yes, the kids are growing independent, but I think 17, 18-year-olds, and obviously there are mixed categories here. Some of them are pretty independent. They are very well researched. But again, the parents want that assurance that whatever research my child has done, it is safe, it is secure, it is actual research, and there is some evidence to it. Just bringing some examples of what other universities and what I did in my previous experience as well. One of the New Zealand universities, what they do is they are very big on sustainability. They do sustainability challenge with a group of schools. And they identify India as regions, and then they build cohort of schools in that region. So again, that point of giving rather than receiving. So they do a sustainability challenge. And when the winners are announced ultimately, and I was a part of one of the award-winning ceremonies, one of the parents flew from Chennai and one of the parents flew from Bangalore to Delhi, which is from South India to North India, as a proud parent, where the student has actually not got admission in that particular university as of now. It is more of recognition which the child is getting and the parent is feeling proud of. So I think somewhere the sentiment of the parent has to be involved as well. In my experience at Victoria University, when I used to do offer holder events online, because it was a COVID world, while the students were invited, the parents were invited as well. And thankfully, I can speak Hindi, I can speak Punjabi as well. And Australia being a Punjab heavy and a Haryana heavy territory, the parents naturally tend to talk in Punjabi or Hindi. So giving them that comfort of talking in the local language, while we keep emphasizing the fact that the child has to speak in English, which is a fair point, but the parent might or might not be able to speak or understand that particular English or a foreign accent as well. So I think being sensitive to the parents is very, very important in the country, because as a parent, I might be an agriculturist, but I might aspire to send my kids overseas, and they are brilliant students as well. Also, one of the other universities, what they do is giving a flavor of having dummy classes before the students actually go overseas. They have their small online class groups, and giving a dummy class to these students who are offer holders for other universities as well, but having that first hand flavor of how he or she would sit in a class in UK, having those fellow colleagues as well, classmates as well, and obviously being taught by somebody whom you've never met at all, and having that and that international flavor. I think all of these small little things do help and assure as a parent as well. So yes, parents are definitely very influential in this whole scheme of things.
Lots of food for thought there. Thank you all for your contributions. And as we head into the last question, audience, please feel free to raise any questions you have via the Q&A function. We'll come to those just at the end of the session. But to finish, really, we've spoken a lot about India, and Charlotte's given some really good relevant examples of other markets that we can learn from as well. But in terms of that diversification, I wonder if, Anamika, we'd start with you first. We're together on the Bangladesh mission to where we're in Dhaka together, learning a little bit more about opportunities there. And I know Portsmouth has a very good brand there. So are you able to share a little bit more about how you're trying to diversify and not just focus purely on recruitment from India?
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, definitely. I think that was the discovery of the counselor network through that Bangladesh mission, in my personal view. As Portsmouth has been the top recruiter for postgraduate students in Bangladesh over the years. Having said that, but undergraduate market was still unexplored. But yes, with such kind of missions, we have been able to integrate our strategies for other South Asian market, and definitely we cannot really ignore the potential the other South Asian markets we have. Bangladesh, definitely, that was one of the missions where we were able to not just engage with counselors, but also it was a new discovery of what kind of students are looking at such programs. And maybe in India, your one course is very popular, but in your other regions, it could be some other courses. And the financial appetite of each country is also going to vary. Well, in India, it might be a case that undergraduate market is probably dominant by some of the traditional universities, but in other South Asian markets, it's also a potential market for non-traditional universities. So I think that was one of the key elements of my takeaway from the Bangladesh mission, and we would be looking forward to see how we can engage more. And one of the activities that we will continue to do is engaging with those school counselors with our presence in India, as much as we have a regional presence in Bangladesh as well, and participating in the IC3 conferences. Thanks to Acumen for providing us those discounted combination offers through which we have been able to participate both in India and Bangladesh.
Great to hear the success for University of Portsmouth and Anamika in Bangladesh. Charlotte, I know that there's been a bit of an appetite at Loughborough University for Sri Lanka and learning from experience there. Is there anything you can share in terms of the university's journey in engaging with high schools in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that Loughborough's always looked at is how we can diversify both courses and nationalities of the students we have on campus. And Sri Lanka's always been a really good country for us in doing that. And I think there's a point to be made here about being consistent in your other markets rather than just your big kind of key markets. So, for example, going consistently or engaging consistently with Sri Lanka, particularly through tough times that markets have seen. So we've worked in Sri Lanka when other universities have pulled out of that as a market, and we've seen the return on that. And personally, it's one of my favourite countries that I've ever travelled to, Sri Lanka. Had some of the best holiday there as well. So I'd recommend it from a personal level. But Sri Lanka's always been quite a good country for us, and our ICRs will be attending the Acumen mission in Sri Lanka that's upcoming as well. So really looking at that. And I think there's something to look at with the diversification as well in terms of the levels that you can look at. I see we've had a question in the chat, which is I was going to kind of cover in this answer as well, and looking at the tiering system of how you work with different aspects. So you might not be able to visit or travel or engage quite as much, but what can you do in terms of virtual activity, in terms of making sure that they get comms from you regularly, email comms, different ways of engaging with different markets and learning the differences between them. So yeah, we've done great school counsellor tours, schools tours in Sri Lanka, but maintaining those relationships digitally over email after we've left as well.
Thanks, Charlotte. And yeah, great to see we've got some questions in the chat. So I think we've probably got time for 3 or 4 before we close today. Can see one from Nishta. So one for the panel: which digital channels have been effective in the past in reaching out to undergraduate audiences? If anybody wants to take that one.
I don't mind jumping in, and I think
Sure.
one of the things to look at here is what you're doing as a value added through digital channels. So most potential undergraduate students are encouraged to do a lot of research. They start their research really early on through their schools, through reading websites, and making sure that your information that's available on the web, so your website, your course pages, your country pages, are really up to date, so students can get that activity. And then in terms of that information, and then in terms of your activity, what are you doing that's added to that? So I always find the most engaged stuff we do includes current students. So using our ambassadors, sharing their experiences. If it's a current student, it gets a really good level of engagement. Academic stuff does quite well, but it needs to be something that's addition to just the course description on your website. So a taster lecture, for example, rather than just an introduction. But yeah, the ones that I've found work really well are anything case studies, short form videos, student panels with our current students.
Thanks, Charlotte. I think one maybe for you, Ritu, in terms of how to grow recruitment in some of the smaller cities. So we hear a lot about tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Is that a good way to start as well to kind of grow in that space? There's a follow-on question about whether schools are preferring to have face-to-face meets or having webinars with academics attend. So if there's anything in there, two different questions, but happy to be great to hear from you on this one, Ritu.
Yeah, I think the very first thing is consistency, and how much do you want to achieve from the market? There's enough in the market, I think, and it also depends on the kind of university you are. We have 2 here, Loughborough and Portsmouth, very different as universities. One is a modern one is a more traditional one, or maybe depends on the rankings as well, depends on the pocket size for each and every audience as well. Not to say that tier 2 and tier 3 cities, I think they have deeper pockets as compared to the tier 1 cities, because obviously tier 1 cities, the living expenses are higher as well. But I think identifying what is it you want to achieve, have you already started in the market, or is it the stage 2 and the stage 3 for you in India? If it is the start, then definitely tier 1 and tier 2 cities is a good way of looking at it, and not kind of diluting and going to tier 3 cities like helter-skelter to the entire country. Definitely online world has gone. We've forgotten COVID, all of us. I personally don't see value in online webinars as much as I'm liking talking here. I wish I could see all the faces. That's such a human thing to do. So I think to start off with, if something goes online and then it kind of boils down to something more physical, which is more concrete. So the example I gave about the New Zealand university, they started the competition online, and then when it came to the relationship building, and it has now come to the final awards and everything, it is physical, it is face to face. So having that human connect is definitely very, very important. Again, with the faculties as well, the first approach can be talking about the wider university, educating where that particular university is, what is the fees, what are the USPs, and so on and so forth. But then adding some specific faculty driven approach is very, very important. As a science student, I don't want to hear about business programs at the university or humanities programs at the university. So I think going step by step and identifying which stage you are at, and then strategizing, is something which is very, very important.
Thanks so much, Ritu. I think we've just about got time for one more question. So Ramesh has asked, from a panel perspective, what's the merit in doing feeder school network activity rather than one-by-one activities with the school? So Anamika, do you have a view on this one?
Sure. I think in my personal view, it is always great, and having a consortium approach with few universities in a group going to schools does not just make it more interactive, but also saves a lot of time for the school counselors. And there are certain time period during the year when schools would not probably be too encouraging to allow visits, as there are certain time periods when the schools are not open for such school visits. So I think it's not just about going collectively or going independently to create your brand presence, but it is more important to what you're going to offer as a collective consortium. Like Ritu mentioned, let's not think about selling your university, but let's think about what we can offer through that visit to the school students as well as the school counselor. And that does provide a lot of options to the students. If my university has certain courses, but I do not offer the course of interest to a group of students, at least I have my colleague who does have that strength to that applicant. So that becomes like a one-stop solution for not just the school students, but as a whole. So that's my take on it.
This has been so helpful today to have this different shared insight, and thank you all for joining. Thank you as the audience. We'll wrap up now. I'll leave some contact details on the screen in case anybody would like to learn more about what we're doing, or if you have a question that we can pass on to the panel. But a huge thanks, Ritu, Anamika, Charlotte, for your time today. Thank you, Sonali, working in the background to make sure this webinar's gone ahead smoothly, despite my internet. So a huge thank you, everybody. Really great to have you all here, and thank you to our panelists once again. And enjoy the rest of your day or evening where you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.